Hello, this is Mike, NoStressMike.com. I want to talk about combat, the physical act of the fighting itself. Now, this is I'm not talking about armed combat, not self-defense type stuff. It's let me see, how do I describe it? It's all the stuff you see on TV, but it's put on the personal aspect, that as an individual, what is going through your mind. Okay, now there's now let me see, how do I start? Okay, I started the combat. It wasn't life and death. It wasn't life and death combat. I mean, I was like maybe 10, 12 years old, and this was back in the racial days, and then it was more like bullies, and so, you know, as a young child, I really never thought I was going to die. The more thought was in the pain and discomfort. And then, I mean, when they came around me, I say it's anywhere from 4 to 10, 12 more. In racial stuff, that's the way it was when I was young, anyway. And I was normally by myself. Sometimes I would be with one or two other people. If I'm with one or two others, then we're talking 12, 15 or more would approach us. In other words, and I was the only non-white, so then there were whites that were with me, and they were intimidated on the doing anything. So in other words, they would intimidate them at the same time they're really coming after me. And but the idea was, for me, my focus was not dying. You know, I mean, I don't know why I never thought about dying, but I did realize the numbers were so bold that really there's no way you could win. And so if you're not going to win, what are your results? You know, what else do you have to go by? And I don't know, I didn't think that much. What I thought about was I was fighting. I had capabilities of fighting at that time already. So my focus was on the fight itself. I never really thought about getting hurt and all this kind of stuff. And then, you know, as I got older, like 14, 15, 16, I really, because of all the experience that I had, I didn't really want to hurt people. But at the same time, when you're outnumbered like that, you have to give them a certain degree of pain. And when you do it quick enough, it scares everybody around them. So I say they're just like a gang. The racial stuff, it's just like, they're just bullies. They're just the only difference is, instead of like gang activity now, they're robbing you, they're just intimidating you, and this type of stuff. It's basically the same thing, other than they were doing it through the race. Your race is the only difference. Now, like I say, on self-defense, It's still combat. It's still combat. But it's not. Okay. It's still combat. Now, but at this time, like I say, it was as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, I really didn't want to kill anybody. I mean, that's not the idea. I mean, you really don't even want to hurt people. But like I say, you're to the point you have to do something to stop them from hurting you, and that is normally you're hurting them. Now, at that time, I would shake as they would come around me. I would shake. I would literally start shaking. Now, a lot of times, like I say, it was a racial thing, so they're making fun of you and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And I remember a lot of times they would say, well, you know, we're scaring him so bad, look at him shake. And it wasn't so much the fear. What it was my adrenaline was really, really pumping. And I didn't realize that at the time. As I got older, that's when I realized what was going on. So I would say that when you are getting ready to get mugged or somebody's going to hurt you, and like I say, you start shaking, don't. I mean, you're scared. Yes, you're scared, but don't get that mixed up like you're really scared and you're going to freeze. You're not going to do nothing. No, your body is preparing to do what it has to do. Okay. Now this is what I remember when I was young, and I wasn't concerned about somebody killing me. I was more concerned about them hurting me, or my friends, the people that I was with. Because even as a child, I knew I had more abilities than all the people around me. Now, I was in Vietnam at 18. And at that time, the combat was different. Now it was military. And that's funny, going through military training, they show you how to fight, I thought it was really cool. They teach you how to kill somebody in 4 seconds. And, so this is what, you gotta get you pumped up in training. They show you all this stuff. You fight each other and all this kind of stuff. And like I say, afterwards they tell you, well, now you're capable of killing somebody in 4 seconds. And it was funny because in true combat, it doesn't last 4 seconds. That's slow. And so it's really kind of funny. That's why when you see the movies and you see them fighting, and this guy's fighting, this guy's doing this, and this guy's doing that, that is really totally unrealistic. At least all the combat that I've done. Okay, now in Vietnam, like I say, we're fighting soldiers. Most of my fighting was at night, and sometimes you knew they were coming, sometimes you didn't. Usually started about 2 in the morning. Now, one of the things that I do now, for me, we were holding a position. So it was the same thing. Basically, I'm doing self-defense. I'm holding a position. And I'm not going out attacking somebody. No different than when I was a teenager and they started coming around me. It's the same thing, except for now there's hundreds and thousands of them, and they have weapons. When I was a youngin', most of the time they didn't have weapons. Very few times, but they did. Most of the time it was a knife when I was young. Now, when I was in Vietnam, they would be armed with, let's say, guns, knives, machetes, tools, explosives. There'd be all kinds of stuff that they would have. Anything that they could carry, they would be using. Now, when you know they're coming, a lot of times you can smell the marijuana. Sometimes they'll be smoking marijuana before they come up. So you'll smell the marijuana in the air, so you know it's coming. You'll hear them. Sometimes they'll beat drums and stuff like that, and so you know it's coming. Well, when it is, you know it's coming. You just don't know the exact time, but you know it's coming within the next hour, or usually the hour is about the maximum you get notice. Now, what happens, they're doing when they beat the drums and stuff like that is to make you nervous and scared. And what you do is your hands start sweating. I'm talking about Vietnam, and the combat now has changed to life or death. In other words, you either do good or you die. There's not going to be no getting hurt kind of stuff. Well, you're going to get hurt. It's usually kind of a given you're going to be hurt. The idea is you have to fight through your pain and discomfort. So what you're going to be doing is your hands are going to be sweating a lot. Now, I'm sure there's a lot that I've forgotten because it is a very traumatic situation, and your hands will be sweating. You have to urinate and go poop a lot. At that time, you can go relieve yourself at that time. Now, once the combat starts, you're doing it in your pants. You're not relieving yourself. Well, you're relieving yourself in your pants. And and I remember, this is what I remember. I remember the sweating of the hands, sweating all over. My head is sweating. Remember I talked about the shaking. I don't remember, well, there was shaking before the combat, but I mean, during the combat itself, I don't remember any shaking. My focus was totally on the combat itself, and that's why I say you're relieving yourself, it's uncontrollable. And so you are focused on exactly what it is you're going to do. Now, this is dark now, and I know the movies portray a lot of guys standing there with their ARs, blasting away and all that stuff. It wasn't like that. I say I really didn't shoot. Most of the time I used hand weapons, not a tomahawk. I talked about it, I used tomahawk once, but not really. Most time machetes, knives, entrenching tool, the shovel. That's normally what I'd use. And the reason is you don't shoot. For one thing is you don't have enough bullets. You can't reload fast enough. There was human waves coming at you. Like I say, we would fight hundreds of thousands of them at a time. And when it's this, and and you never left your area. You stayed right there. So you're focused on defending yourself against whatever. I'm not going to go into detail and tell you about what we did and how we did it, but I'm just trying to set you up the emotional part that you're going through at that time. Now, also, okay, and then so I say you're focused exactly on what you have to do. And like I say, as they start coming up at you, they're coming at you either with guns, rifles, with bayonets, and like I say, we don't shoot, and the reason is, like I say, we don't have enough bullets. You can't keep changing the magazine that much. There's just too much of it. And so we're defending an area. We're not going much. So I'm focused exactly on what it is I have to do. That's the end of me on my side, on that type of thing. Now, when it comes to attacking, now in Vietnam, I really have no experience on attacking military style. I had other things that I did, and so I want to talk about with a feeling that you have when you are going in, when you're going in on a life and death combat situation. Okay, now, if let me see how do I say it. If it's just like the Vikings, and you start running, yelling and running and stuff like that, you, let me see, how do you say this? You're not focused on anything, but you're just running right in. Now, I say I didn't do that kind of stuff, so I can't give you the exact details on it. But I don't think they're going to be relieving themselves at the time they're running in. Now, right when they're making contact, I would say they probably are, because that's going to be a very scary situation. The reason that they're yelling and screaming and running in at you, and it's not like you see on the movies, when you run up and you stop and you see, okay, I'm going to have to fight this guy, you're probably going to be relieving yourself, and you're going to be intimidated and he's going to kill you. So what you're doing when you're pumping yourself up by screaming and hollering and you're running at him, you don't have a chance, the fear doesn't have a chance to overwhelm you. That's why the fight lasts that long. You just go in there and you kill them, or you go in there and you're going to die. Or they're going to have you strike. They're going to strike you. You're going to go down. You're going to be incapable of functioning anymore. Because if you can still function, you will be functioning. So whether you live or you're dead, they're going to stop you from functioning. That was the goal when they were coming at me. Okay, so that's how they control their fear. They're pumping themselves up and they're running right at you. They got to remember, you're going to get tired as you're running up. So that's where we had the advantage. That's why I was able to take on more number. That people say, well, you're all by yourself, how can you handle all of that? Well, they were tired by the time they got to me. I said we were up on the mountain, so they had to run up the hill to get to me. I don't know if you can even see it, but there's a hill right over there. By the time you get up that hill, you're going to be tired, and that's why I had the advantage on them. So it's not like I'm some kind of a superhero. And okay, so that's why you're yelling and screaming and running, and you don't get a chance to have fear, and you go in there and you do your thing, and you go right on to the next one and the next one and the next one. You just keep going like that. That's how that type of combat works. Another type of combat is a stealthy. When you're attacking, there's a stealthy way of attacking. In other words, you slowly sneak up on them. You slowly sneak up on them. And now I've done all this type of stuff. My experience on this is counter-terror when I was training SWAT teams and in the counter-terror field. And most of that was in buildings. So in other words, you move stealthy through the building. Now, it's the same thing. You are focused on what you have to do, and you're moving slow and easy. You're going by sound, what you can hear, what you can smell, and then every once in a while you'll be able to see. We use mirrors around corners and this type of stuff. And then when you're moving stealthy like that, you pick your fights. In other words, you wait till the time is right, and then you go in and you strike. And it's the same thing. It's not going to be like you see on TV where you hit me, I hit you, and go back and forth. It doesn't work that way. You pick your time. When your time is right, you go in, bam, you're all done. So, to counter that stuff, like I say, a lot of times I was the bad guy, and when we're doing exercises with SWAT, and so to counter that stuff, I have to. A lot of times I will see them coming. I know they made entrance in the back door. There'll be an office building. I know they made entrance. What I got to do is stalk them. And see, what they're doing is stealthy moving. What I'm doing is stalking them. I'm looking for them. I'm hunting them down. And then once I locate them, now I sit back. And now I look at the situation, I see, and then I'm focused on what I got to do, and then bammo, I do it. So those are the basic types of combat. And I say, in all of them, I say your hands are getting sweaty, and you're getting sweaty. And that's what I was talking about, smell, because you can smell them, because they're sweating and they're nervous and scared coming in also. So that's why there's a lot of things that goes on that you really don't realize in a combat situation. This is Mike, NoStressMike.com.